Hello, good evening, and welcome to Big Talk on Global TV Africa. My name is Ubong Osoro. Don't forget we're live on DSTV channels 367 and StarTimes channels 265. Today's discussion is going to be mind-blowing. We're still in the period of mourning. Remember, our former late President Muhammadu Buhari died, was buried in Daura. And today, now, as we're talking to you, there is a special FEC meeting going on, Federal Executive Council meeting going on in honor of the late former President Muhammadu Buhari. And today on the program, we're going to be looking at the Nigerian economy and how we can actually grow the economy. We have an expert that will be helping us make sense of this discussion. But before we go any further, my colleague Samuel Udi did a special report about how some Nigerians think about how former late President Muhammadu Buhari handled the economy of Nigeria. Let's listen to that report, and when we come back, we'll go right into the program. Don't go nowhere. Big Talk on Global TV.
Today in the streets to find out what Nigerians really think about one of the most talked about figure in the country's political history, late President Muhammadu Buhari. From a street military ruler in the 80s to a two-time civilian president, Buhari has left an imprint on Nigerian economy. Now, let's find out if those imprints is for better or for worse.
During this military regime, I was very young. But according to my father's story, according to what he told me, he said things was very tough. But during this civilian regime, during his regime, that I got work.
The civilian government was quite an impressive one, we will say, because Nigeria went from up to down and it was so bad. And the economy has totally changed from now to then. Well, we'll say he should rest in peace. He did his best.
We experienced some, certain hardship and a whole lot of problem here and there in terms of cashless policy, NSAS protests and the rest. It didn't really, went well for most we Nigerians.
While some Nigerians credit him with tackling infrastructure and security challenges, others pinpoint economic struggles, including unemployment, rising inflation. One thing is clear: Buhari's time in power, both in Kaki and Agbada, has left a complex, lasting impact on Nigeria. But one thing is still certain: Nigerians are patriotic citizens. They wish for him to rest in peace as he meets his maker. Samuel Odi reporting for Global Television.
All right, also today I went on social media to track some of the big stories today and get some reactions of Nigerians on social media. There's a story that says your passport not in our custody. There's a story that's actually trending on social media now, and I actually got some reactions from Nigerians. Let's get to see the story and what some Nigerians are saying about some of these trending stories on social media. The story says your passport is not in our custody. Okay, so while we're trying to bring that, the story says your passport is not in our custody. FCT court tells Yaya Bello seeking the temporary release of his international passport to enable him to travel abroad for medical treatment. All right, so that story is actually trending on social media. Let's see some what some Nigerians think about this story. Mark Watt Nisa says he revamped the medical facilities in Kogi State. Let him use those. All right. I think we have other Nigerians talking about this story. Okay. Another story says Atiku's PDP resignation letter was leaked. There's a story that's trending on social media that I tracked for us tonight. All right, it says Atiku's PDP resignation letter was leaked. Media advisor to former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, Paul Ibe, has claimed that Atiku's resignation letter from the People's Democratic Party (PDP) was leaked and not officially released. I think some Nigerians made comments to that effect. Someone says the question Yasuke goes by the name Yasuke, says the question is how Keyamo, who is not a member of the PDP, got his hands on what should have been an internal correspondence within the party. I guess it's now clear why they had to leave the party for the likes of Wike and co. Do we have any other Nigerian that said something about that? This one says, that's just a cover-up. Atiku media released the news now claiming APC leaked Atiku's resignation letter from the PDP. A lot of drama going on there. I don't want to go far because we have a lot to talk about tonight. But there's also another story, okay? Truly DRS says you expected PDP to hide Atiku's resignation letter from the public. That's a question PDP may need to answer. Another story we're tracking for you tonight, that's actually the last story. Big story says court acquits former Ekiti governor. The story says the Federal High Court in Lagos has discharged and acquitted former Ekiti State Governor Ayodele Fayose of alleged 6.9 billion money laundering and theft, bringing an end to a legal battle that lasted for over 7 years. And there were some reactions to that story. Someone says Prince Sherlock says, of course, it's been expected, life goes on. Any other person said something? Says Jackie Waziri says, if you know any politically exposed person with a corruption case, in bracket cases, and is willing to have his charges dropped, contact me please. That's actually very funny. All right, I don't know in what position. Do we have any other reaction? And okay, someone says, brother, don't meet brother, settle matter. Nigerians can actually be very hilarious. All right, guys, so let's get to our discussion for tonight. Tonight, joining us on Big Talk to help make sense of the discussion, we have Dr. MKO Balogun, who just came into Abuja, and we had to bundle him to the studio. Very good evening to you, Dr. Balogun.
Good evening, Obong. Nice to be here.
Yeah, Dr. MKO Balogun is a property and facility manager, a lecturer, adjunct lecturer. Is it adjunct professor?
Lecturer
at the University of Lagos, where he teaches facility management courses. And he's done a lot of things. He's an engineer, and he's done a lot of other things around property development, and he's also a public affairs analyst. In fact, he started his early days in politics. And, student politics. So what happened?
Nothing. Good evening, viewers, once again, and good to be here. At the stage while I was a student, there was urgent need for a lot of things to be done in Nigeria. It was we were at the peak of the Nigerian election during Abila's era, June 12. I was the Secretary General of NANS.
That's 93.
Yes, having been Speaker of the Students' Union in my university for 2 years, and contested. My campus hosted in NANS, the campus hosting the secretariat as the president and secretary. My colleague Dennis was president, I was the secretary general. While I was speaker, Dennis was secretary of the union. So, and there were a lot for us to do. And we wanted to also do student union in a different way, because before then, student union was the months with problems and troubles. I remember entering 2 universities, and I was followed by police after exiting. When I did a tour of, higher institutions in Nigeria for about 30 days. And the conversation I had with the police was that they didn't see me come to find trouble, because I went to have a conversation with the school authorities about how to improve education. Then we were planning a national summit on education in Abuja, and I was going to all the major institutions in Nigeria to see how we can improve and bring everybody on board to have a conversation where there were a lot of problems. I remember Shinka saying that time that we should shut down university for 2 years and see what we can do. So, and so the second was that there was issue on politics. We went through an election, the military shut down the election, handed over to one of them, and Abacha was in government, who were the national leaders of the Students' Union movement, which was the strongest pro-democratic group in Nigeria at that time. All the others were just, support structure. But we were able to, make a case. We were able to prove a point. We were able to make our voice heard. I remember a couple of things that we did that a lot of people thought is impossible, but it was important. We had the opportunity of, participating through the, general structure that everybody was participating, but we stood our ground as student leaders, and they wanted us to do something different. So yeah, basically.
Right. Yeah. So you had a whole lot of involvement with students, protesting against the June 12 mandate of the late MKO Abiola. Let's talk about former late President Muhammadu Buhari. Who or what can you talk about him? What does he mean to you?
The president was, when he was his first tenure as a military leader, I was a student of politics, and I always study our leaders. And I can give you a breakdown of all the Nigerian leaders over a period of time to see what their body language, what they contributed, what their policies, how their programs and policies have impacted Nigerians and governance. I was particularly intrigued by General Buhari's first tenure as military head of state. The way he, some of the key policies at that time, especially on the oil and gas. I remember, and today we have LNG today, was started, at that time. So post-military, he was civilian president at a time when a lot of things were happening globally, economic turmoil, COVID, and I always tell people that the test of a leader in an economy is that person's ability to turn around a bad situation to a good situation. Nigeria went to recession the first quarter of President Buhari's tenure.
2 recessions.
Yes, absolutely. I just wanted to build up. And it was credited, and Nigeria was credited to be the first country to come out of recession within 2 quarters.
But doctor, people have this thought, why did Nigeria even go into recession during Buhari's time?
Yeah, so for every major transition, there is always a lull where the new government is trying to understand and how to implement. And I always also give the example of my industry with leadership, with governance. I'm a facility manager. You give me a building. We're talking to you about the building. I can promise you everyone that I'm going to transform the building. I'm going to change this and that and make the building functional. But I've not entered the building. I don't know how bad your roof is. I don't know how bad your plumbing system is. Until I come into the building before I realize that, oh wow, I promise I'm going to fix it in 6 months. But because I have to do a lot of major revamp. And that's what happened with politics and governance. You can campaign to the world that you're going to do all manner of things. So when you have a major transition, every new government is a major transition. You expect some shifts and changes. You expect some slowdown in the economy. And if it happens at a time when there are also global shifts, it's going to affect whatever you're going to do.
All right. So I remember when
and the fact that we're able to move quickly off recession is also very important. Yes.
Yeah, I remember when late former President Muhammadu Buhari was campaigning to be president of Nigeria. He campaigned in 2007, in 2011, and all of that. And in fact, in 2011, he cried and all that he's not going to go back again. It took some form of coalition. We saw him come back in 2014, and he promised Nigerians that when he gets into power, he's going to
make a lot of changes.
Yeah, change Nigeria. And Nigerians ran on that mantra of change. A lot of people expected robust infrastructural development and change. But what you're saying now is that we shouldn't trust politicians. That's what it means. When they say what they don't mean, or they say what they won't be able to implement.
So let me tell you my own understanding of the way we should operate. And I've said this a number of times. Politicians campaign on their own terms, not our own terms. So a politician, a governorship candidate, a president is coming with his manifesto. We didn't give him a manifesto. We didn't tell him these are our pain points. These are the things we want you to go and fix. I remember Obasanjo's book, Not My Will. One of the things Obasanjo says in that book is that as a nation, we must establish principles that no matter which government is coming, their first thing, priorities, is to deliver on that. We've not established that as a nation.
No, but there were priorities.
Those are
three different things. Economy,
no,
as a former President Buhari campaign on economy,
yes,
on corruption.
But I'm saying it defined them on its own, not based on our own.
But it resonated with Nigerians.
Absolutely, because we want our economy to be fixed. But how? To what extent? To what level? So you're saying, yeah, he didn't do what we expected. He didn't achieve as much as we wanted. Yes, it's subjective. To you, to him, maybe he has achieved his objective. Stabilize the economy, stabilize security, worked on this, maybe he's not achieved a lot on infrastructure. For your information, if you listen to the Minister of Information immediately after the first tenure, they read out the amount of money that was missing in the economy. For your information also, and I'm sure you know, journalists, that at the time the government came into power, there was no handover note. The second was that there was no money. And so these are factors that you will find that will contribute to instability. Government. I'm not in any party. I did not work with the government. I'm a business person. I study, because if I have to play in an economy, I must understand the way both politics and economy work, so that I can know what my expectations are. I always tell people, when any government comes in, when I say new government, meaning 8 years is gone, either it is the same party or not the same party, it's a new government. I expect major changes. Before President Tinubu's election, I had a conversation with some of our partners abroad, and they were asking, what do you see the direction of the Nigerian economy? And I said, whoever comes to Nigeria to become president of Nigeria, these are the areas I think, because that's what all of them are campaigning on. They're going to prioritize, and this is the impact it's going to have on business.
Okay, so let's still look at, before we get into in discussion, let's still talk about late former President Muhammadu Buhari. At the time when he was military leader or ruler, you were very young, but you understood. Some Nigerians even voted him in 2014 because of some sentiments that he is going to, especially tame corruption. So I want us to stay on corruption. From 2014 to 2022, or 2023, was former President Muhammadu Buhari able to decisively deal with corruption during his reign as of Nigerian president?
So, two things that I know. One is the fact that, and I know this for a fact, and I've had people talk about that, is the early part of his government. The fact that he has promised and he has set up systems and structure, people naturally started changing. And you remember, the first era with
war against indiscipline.
Exactly. When people know that this guy is a no-nonsense, people say the fact that this picture is in their office, they assume is in their presence, and they don't want to do anything if there's no CCTV looking at them. So that sentiment was there. It may not, see, corruption is not, and that was the second part of my conversation. Corruption is not, is a national problem. It's not a political problem.
Are all Nigerians corrupt?
I can tell you for a fact that corruption is more in the private sector than in the public sector. That actually private sector people corrupt public sector people. I was telling somebody at our event today, and I said, people in real estate, for instance, whose houses have been knocked down because they built in the wrong places or they didn't follow the law, they will show evidence that they've got approval. And the question you ask them, how did you get approval for a wrong place? Why would you go to government office to go and meet an official government to say, you know what, I want to build on the drainage, please approve, and bribe the guy to approve? Who are you going to blame? Is it the civil servant or yourself? The guy is in his office. He didn't come to your house to tell you, you know what, I know you want business, come. So when we say corruption, there is a limit to, so look at, take a house. A home is a microsome of a nation. A home to a community, and you find that when you talk corruption, today companies close down because of corruption. Today religious houses closed down because of corruption.
So the question is, was former President Muhammadu Buhari, late former president, able to fight corruption? Because he ran a campaign. Corruption was the main pillar, in your opinion.
Yes, I'm not in the best
of places
to be able to say, because it has to be based on data. Maybe you can use Transparency International data, which I'm sure you have. What was our data? What our number at the time he came in? What was our number when he was leaving? We can say, okay, basically, based on global trend, are we improved? Yes, we did, because the numbers improved. And I know Vice President Shibajo was focused on a lot of things that would drive some of those conversations around the government. So yes, in some sense, there are efforts. Whether those efforts were enough is the question. And that's what I was trying to give you background. Corruption can, see, when you say fight corruption, you cannot put soldiers and police on the streets to fight corruption. You can have courts, you can have ICPC, you can have EFCC, and they did a lot, both of them, both agencies of government did a lot. A lot of cases were brought up, a lot of people volunteered. Actually, one of the things the president did was to get a commission to say, you know what, you've stolen money, we don't want to go to court, bring our money, and people came and brought a lot of money. So there were efforts too. Whether those were enough to majorly, significantly reduce corruption is left to be said.
Yeah, because some Nigerians also talk about looted funds that were retrieved during his tenure from the UK, from other countries, and you know, if you go on social media, if you listen to commentary, a lot of people ask, it seems these funds were also relooted at the end of the day. So he campaigned on corruption, but we saw of recent we've had somebody like Godwin Emefiele, who has been dangled with corruption. We have Babachi Lawal, who was in this administration and had, accusations. So yeah,
I agree with you.
Kitchen cabinet.
Yeah. So unfortunately, and leadership, and that is the conversation to leadership. There are different categories of leaders, and there are different personalities in leadership. My understanding of the personality, and during the burial there were conversations around what kind of leadership method and approach he used as president, trusting people who had come to him, and that's with Emefiele, for instance. A lot of stories about presenting, and I say, okay, go ahead if you think he's right, because that's his principle. If I hire you as a CBN governor, I shouldn't be watching your back. I shouldn't send 5 people to cross-check what you've done. If I hire you as minister of the federal government of Nigeria, I shouldn't put EFCC on your tail to check every paper you bring, because that's the element of trust and leadership that you must have. If the president has to watch everybody's back, he will not be able to run governance. The question, and that's what I was telling you, that corruption is difficult to tame. Will
Nigeria ever tame corruption?
It's difficult. Very difficult.
You're not seeing it happening in the
I don't see that happening. I don't see any government fighting corruption, because we're just going to be wasting our time saying we are fighting corruption. The question we should be looking for, why are people corrupt? So all these guys we mentioned, these are guys who are successful. Emefiele was head of one of the biggest banks in Nigeria before he became governor. He was governor for almost 7 years before Buhari came in. What else are they looking for? All the guys who have volunteered to bring money, head of JAMB, head of government agencies, pension funds. What else are they looking for? Why will they go to the extent? Do
you have an answer to that question? Why are Nigerians corrupt?
I don't. And that is something that we need, because that's the only way we can fix corruption. And we cannot kill corruption, because every country has some level. One of the countries, the president ran away. He didn't hand over. Merely so he was losing election, was contested. He carried back and bailed out of the country, because if he stays, the incoming government is going to prove him. So corruption is not local to Nigeria, and we shouldn't lose.
Corruption is endemic in Nigeria.
That's an assumption. There is corruption when we say endemic. The question that's what I'm asking: why do we see it? Why should people who naturally should be well-to-do, who are intelligent, who are smart, who went to school, who understands governance, who understand, still get themselves immersed to the level that we are, and not just madly, because you see some level of corruption. Ask yourself, why should people do this?
Yeah, you're still talking about staying with late former President Muhammadu Buhari. We've seen a lot of tributes pouring from those outside Nigeria and those within Nigeria. It seems that once somebody dies in Nigeria, we canonize him. He becomes a saint overnight. Because we've seen even opposition party come to write tribute and say he was a man of integrity.
I think the fact about the President Buhari is that he's who he is. Whether he was successful as a president is a different question. And we should separate the personality. And what we are celebrating, what we are mourning, is the personality of the man who was president of Nigeria twice, actually 3 times, military and civilian. Was it effective? Did he represent himself and this nation? Did he carry the office of the president the way he promised he was going to do? The answer is yes. Yes, whether he was successful in every aspect of his manifesto to deliver, to improve Nigerian welfare, to deliver infrastructure, deliver corruption, is subject to is a matter of debate. He may not be successful. But can you take the fact that President Buhari was President Buhari in personality? The man that we know, the way he carries himself, what he says he does. Did you see him as one president in Nigeria that was he able question?
Yeah, was he able to pass
that into people? That's the question. And that's why I said leadership. If you run a company, for instance, you have people you have to hire to work with you. If you run a governor, if you're a governor, you hire commissioners. If you are president, if you're head of parastatal, you cannot police everybody. You assume that people should see you, your body language, the way what you represent is what the people around you should represent. And even Jesus had a Judas. You understand? So we cannot fault a leader because of the failures of his followers.
But the boss, we're going to interrogate that thought.
I agree that the box stops with the leader, and you cannot exonerate a leader when there's a failure. But the question you want to ask yourself, did that leader do everything humanly possible to represent what he says and permeate same thing to people around him? The answer is yes. Because this is a simple man. This is a man who lives the way he speaks, the way he wants. So whether people around him are able to see the same way, it's a different. And it's a matter of the people that we have, the resources that are available. President Tinubu, for instance, some people in this house were dropped.
But
even in South Africa, 2 days ago, the Minister of Police was fired for corruption. So you cannot kill a leader because he has hired people who are.
We'll talk about that, interrogating the method of leaders choosing people and choosing lieutenants who work with them. Thank you so much, Dr. MKO Balogun, who is actually a lecturer, property facility manager, and also a public affairs analyst, for joining us today on the show. We are coming back, but let's go for a short break, people. And when we're back, we head straight to keep talking about the conversation, Nigerian leadership and economic growth. This is Big Talk on Global TV. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Big Talk on Global TV. My name is Ubong Osoro, your host, and today I have Dr. MKO Balogun, who is a lecturer, property and facility manager, and public affairs analyst. And at some point, he was a politician before he left the field, joining us to make sense of the discussion. We're still looking at Nigeria during late former President Muhammadu Buhari's time. As somebody who's into business, how was business 2014 to 2023?
As a matter of fact, for us, and I go back to the foundation of what I said, you must understand the economy where you play, you must understand how things operate, politically, how it impacts your business, what are the policies that you expect, what policies of government do you think will have positive impacts in the industry, in the market. And I can tell you for a fact, during the time of the president, late President Buhari, especially in the real estate sector, before then, we had almost 15, 16 quarters of negative growth for the industry. There were policies of government, and I remember being asked by one of the journalists in Lagos, why is government focused on real estate to stimulate the economy, especially during COVID, post-COVID. One of the things the government did was, let's invest, let's put money in real estate development, homes, and it has ripple effects. And it moved the industry from negative to positive, which is very good, because when the government invests in infrastructure or real estate, creates an environment that enables investors, private sector participation, stimuli, because there are multiple components of that. The second is that the response of government and private sector stakeholders during COVID had a major impact on the Nigerian economy, actually positive. While a lot of countries struggled post-COVID, Nigeria was able to stabilize quickly because of some of the policies the government put in place. As a company that operates in Nigeria and outside Nigeria, I can say that our business has consistently been stable and positive. During those periods when, I remember one of our shareholders said, everybody is struggling, you're smiling. It's because you must understand the way economy works.
So what we're saying is that 2014 to 2023, the economy was good. The economy was good.
No, don't use the word good, because people may not understand what you mean by good. A lot of people, you can see from the report you shared, good means different things to everybody. What I always tell people is that when you're at the economy, the question you want to ask is, why are the opportunities, no matter how bad the economy is, no matter how good the economy is. If you don't pay attention to the opportunities, you will assume that the economy is bad. And so in relative terms, yes, for people to understand, and you can find what has happened in various sectors, tech sector, medical industry, people improved. A lot of new organizations came up during this period, became major organizations.
But we also had a lot of organizations leave Nigeria during that period.
So let's come back to that conversation. And I'm something I know very well. And I always tell people, we must understand the reason why companies move out. Some is not because of Nigeria, absolutely. And I can tell you for a fact, there are one or two of the countries that I know very well that did not exit Nigeria because Nigeria was bad. They exited Nigeria because they misunderstood, and that's why it's fundamental. You must understand the economy. If you're an FMCG, your focus is disposable income. If you don't pay attention to people's disposable income, and you produce products that people cannot afford, then you lose in the markets. And other people came when those guys were leaving. Some people were being created. New companies were being created. They were taking their space. Even up to now, all the companies that have left, their space were not vacuum or were not vacant. The economy is not struggling because they are not there. Other companies have been created majorly locally. Those who are here, see what Dangote is doing, see what Tolaram is doing. These are companies that came up and started in Nigeria.
All right.
And they're doing well in the same economy that some people say, oh, Nigeria is not good, we'll pack our bag out. So when you say people left,
we had
why?
2014 to 2023, we had the Naira moved from 150 to about 400, 600. We had we had insecurity. That could also affect production, moving, products from the farm. We had herders, farmers clashes.
You need economists to be able to dissect this conversation. I'm not an economist. I'm a businessman, and I don't want to.
From the business.
Yeah, so that's what I'm explaining. That for me,
and then a lot of Nigerians leave in droves. The Japan syndrome came.
It is a global trend. So there is a social component to trend to Japan.
Yeah, go ahead.
Major social. The studies have shown that young people are restless. Where those guys some people were living in Nigeria looking for greener pastures abroad. Some other young Nigerians were creating organizations in Nigeria that became unicorn in the same market, in the same economy that people were exiting. So, and that's why I say it's relative. And I don't want to say that, and I said I'm not an economist. I don't have any empirical data to say, okay, at average Nigeria, as at the time Buhari came in and he left, his livelihood increase or reduce. I don't have any that data to say.
But businesses did well.
And that's what I'm telling you. For us, as a matter of fact, for us, we did well. And it's because we understand that there are certain things is going to change, certain areas and you need to refocus. So you cannot play in the market. I'll give you a company that everybody knows about, everybody talked about. They left Nigeria, and I can tell you for a fact they left Nigeria because they were not paying attention to the Nigerian economy. They invested money, and they did not pay attention to the changes in the space. Other people came in, and the market shifted, and all the investments went to naught, and they had to pack up and sell the place. So when you say, and somebody has bought the place to produce the same, it's not like factory is idle. Somebody packed up as what he took the factory. So what does that tell you? Does it tell you that there is a problem? No.
All right, so let's look at
some left, another company bought them over, and you find them in various sectors: FMCG, engineering, manufacturing. So what it tells you that when people says they are leaving Nigeria, the question was, why are you leaving? And there are things that we are not seeing, but others are taking over. We talk about
200. We have
NNPC has not been able to operationalize refinery in the last 15-20 years. Dangote within the same period has built a new one that is working. So when you say, Nigeria economy is not good, people are packing out, we have to understand why are others.
Let's look at another sector that was very critical when the former president was campaigning. That's about insecurity, because post 2014, around 2012, 2013, we had major security issues. We had bombing and all of that, and Nigerians saw him as somebody who is coming with a lot of experience, having been a military head of state, and is coming into actually refocus Nigeria as regards insecurity. Will you say, in your assessment as a Nigerian, of course you were around during the time that former late President Muhammadu Buhari was able to fight insecurity?
So whether he succeeded is a different question, and I don't think he succeeded. Whether he was able to tame, yes. Largely there was a reduction, not totally eliminated. Insecurity has a social component, and we must know that. Insecurity is not about sending soldiers to go and find terrorists. It's what is driving people to become terrorists. But that's the social component that was not tackled. If you look at the Niger Delta problem, when former President Yar'Adua was in power, he looked at it from a social point of view, not a military point of view. He did not send soldiers into Niger Delta. There was a commission, there was an engagement, there was a revamp, there was a rehabilitation. Those guys are now doing business for the federal government of Nigeria. That's the way we've not seen, the insecurity that we face from the north. We've seen it from a military point of view rather than from a social point of view. And yes, you can find a reduction, and there's also political components to the same thing. People want to create problems, and we saw that in the military era, where people engineer insecurity so that to look like somebody is not doing his work. So we need to look at insecurity. But your question is whether he was able to tame or not. No. But was he able to reduce what? Did he have impact? Yes. But as a nation, we need to step back and look at insecurity. Unfortunately, we're in a territory where we cannot absorb ourselves from external forces that has influence on what's happening in Nigeria. And so we need to look at it from that. And I remember one of the conversations the late president had was, how do we, all of us on that axis, come together? Not just see as if we're fighting on both sides, but come together and say, how do we solve that? How do we, reduce the influence of foreigners in our territory, engineering the security for their own good, because they want to sell arms, recruit people. And so that's the social element that we are not focused on, which at that time we tried to, but I don't know to what extent we were able to take it. So yes, the answer is there was no success as expected, but there was reduction. There were efforts. There used some level of foods reduce the impact, because the number of kidnapping reduced, the number of bombings reduced. But did you achieve a total elimination of insecurity in Nigeria? No.
Okay, so before, I like that you just I'd like to get your thoughts about the emerging political situation in Nigeria, the political parties that are coming up and all of that. But before then, I'd like to ask you, was late former President Muhammadu Buhari, in your opinion, was he prepared for leadership? Because for somebody who in 2007 contested for presidency, 2011 contested under CPC, in 2014 contested under the APC as we have it today, was he really prepared for leadership? Was he prepared?
Yes, he was. But you find out that somebody was a leader almost 20 years earlier in a very different format. The military is different from civilian. In military, you have control, command and control. You hire people, you fire him. Politics is completely different. You don't have, and he said it, I remember one of his conversations on interviews, that you cannot bypass National Assembly, you cannot bypass the party, you cannot hire the person you feel can deliver. There are so many constraints that political leadership, brings to the table. So if you say somebody is prepared for leadership, is a question. And you see, currently you see President Trump in America. Some people don't like his methods, but he knows the only way he can get the kind of results he wants is to bully everybody.
Yeah.
He's not military, he's a Democrat, he's a democratically elected president.
A converted Democrat. They kept saying he has converted to being a Democrat.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that he knows that for him to achieve everything that he wants to say, he has to bully both internally and externally. People may not like his methods, but that's the challenge you have in Nigeria. I remember he was asked a question about when he arrested and locked up the chief of security to the former president, Sambo. Dasuki. And he was in prison, and I said, why is he not? He said, if you release the man, if the man goes abroad, the money he has control over, he will be using, he can buy a country. So that's the challenge. You have somebody who was a military leader now coming to a civilian environment. Your best of preparation. You need people to be able to deliver. Second, you need circumstances. There are so many factors. I always look at political leadership or the business leadership. If you're a CEO of a company and you inherit a company, the question you ask yourself, what do I have? What resources do I require to deliver? Do I have them in the business? If I don't have them, can I afford to hire them to transform the business? Do I have the opportunity to do a short, medium, and long-term fix? What results am I going to get with whichever method? Who do I want to satisfy? Do I want to satisfy investors? If your business is not quoted, you have the long-term opportunity. If your business is quoted, nobody's going to wait for you for mid or long-term. They want 6 months, 1 year, they can see that your numbers are changing. So that's the difference. You, as a business leader, you can decide, you can go to the board and present to the board and share and say, you know what, I need to fire the following people because for me to deliver your terms, I must hire. But in politics, you can't. You need to go to the party. Sorry, we have these are the people I have to work with. Either you like it or not.
Yeah. So he was constrained, and there was nothing he could do. Let's move to this conversation now. In 2014, 2013, we saw ANPP we saw some part of ANPP. I mean, we saw the CPC, Congress for Progressive Change. We saw the ACN, Action Congress of Nigeria, and we saw the new PDP led by Atiku Abubakar and some governors, about 8 or thereabout, come together to form a party, a new party called the APC. And maybe most Nigerians didn't give them a chance because it was novel in the history of Nigeria, at least after when we had the SDP in 1993 and thereabout. It was novel to see the parties coming together to form a coalition, but they were able to form a coalition. They stayed together. Some people thought when they get to the primaries, but they came out, presented Muhammadu Buhari, and they won the election. And it seems history wants to repeat itself because we're having some members of the PDP, as we had some members of the PDP led by the same Atiku Abubakar. He's leading, but now, maybe without a governor for now, but who knows? All right, he's just tendered his resignation later. He's joining the ADC. We had Nazir El-Rufai, who was from the CPC bloc, joining the ADC as we have now. And we had some members of other opposition parties, Labour parties, and the rest joining the ADC. Are you seeing the ADC winning the 2027 elections, as the APC did? Maybe the economic situation is the same, because if you go on the street, some Nigerians will tell you.
Yeah, so very good question, and I've read a lot of commentaries in the last 2 to 3 weeks now, when all those political changes and movements. ADC itself is not settled yet. We don't know who is who there. A lot of people are at the launch. Some of them have not really made up their mind because they don't know the structure the party is going to be. Those who are throwing in their toe from the other party want to take early position. Some of them have openly said they want to be president of the party. There are 4 people in that party that are likely going to say they want to be president. Who is going to give in to who? That's a different conversation within the party. Now, to your question about the structure of ADC versus the structure of APC as at the time APC came up, the difference that I see is that one had groups with political basis coming together, not individual basis. At that time, you had Atiku's group, as we said, with governors, because they had political base. They had a block that they can carry along. You had the CPC, Buhari's group, who had their own political base they can bring along. You had the Tinubu group at that time with their own political base. So everybody had something they were bringing to the table. It wasn't like individual politicians coming together to form a party. It was political groupings with strong political bases coming together to say, you know what, for us to do the mathematics of election, I can deliver so much percentage into the block. That's what we need to see before we start having a conversation around whether we have a similar pattern. Yeah. We have not seen that yet. As I said, it's still early stages for the party. Let's see how each of the players...
In the last election, we had Mr. Peter Obi of the Labour Party contest against President Ahmed Tinubu. He brought about 8 million votes. We had Atiku Abubakar, who also had millions of votes. And now some commentators have permutation that if they are able to have the kind of votes they had the last time, elections may be over before 12 o'clock.
I agree. So let's dissect that election. Within the 3 parties, there were people who have not joined ADC who are in the 3 parties. As I said, we don't know where Peter Obi sits today. He's joined ADC, was at the launch, whether he has publicly resigned his membership, left LP, or declared that LP is now a coalition member, because that's what we're talking about, blocks of ADC. They will know that that vote is likely. Don't forget also that there were sympathy votes at that election. There were divided votes. There were people who just said, we just did so. And I always give an example in Lagos. We had an House of Rep member who electors don't really know, but they just wanted to vote against the party and they voted the guy in. So we need to see those movements before we start using the last result as the basis of permutation and combination.
So should the current government be scared about the coming?
It is left for the party and the government to define what they see. As somebody from outside, I understand politics. I don't think they should. For Nigerians, the important thing is that who will serve our interest best.
All right. So some questions ordinary Nigerians will be asking. The prices of common commodities, doctor, seem to be rising every day in the market. Yeah, we've had some reductions in the past weeks. But for instance, petrol that it's commonly used to fund production and run systems in Nigeria before the coming of the government, before the removal of subsidy. Those are sentiments that may, some opposition members may want to throw.
So the question, and if you look at the last election, and I said it earlier, the 4 leading candidates at the election, from Kwankwaso to Atiku to Obi to President Tinubu, almost said the same policies that they were going to implement. Subsidy removal to economic reform to everything. The approach, the method, the timing may be different if they had come into power. But all of them said enough was enough. We cannot continue to subsidize consumption as a nation. That's what we're doing. So yes, there will be major impacts. I give an example to a boat driver in Lagos. And I said, you have people who have 5 cars. You have somebody who has 1 car. They go to the station, fuel subsidized. They ride a vehicle that consumes all the fuel in the world. You that you're a common man, the same money that government should have used to do infrastructure, to do other things, government used to subsidize the guy who has money because he has car. And the guy gave me an example that one day, and we're talking about power. The same thing, we're subsidizing everything in Nigeria, everything consumption. People, a common man does not have air conditioning in his house. And I always give an example. If you go to a hotel, if you pay for a hotel, if the hotel doesn't have a electronic control for air conditioning, you leave your room with your AC on it and come back, the AC is cooling. But in your house, you won't do that because you won't be manager energy. And he was telling me that he drove a guy out of his house about 120 meters away. The guy realized that he has left his ACs. He begged him to turn back because he doesn't want the energy bill to kill him. So it's a consciousness of consumption. When we get there, no economy thrives when government subsidizes everything. Even in a country where we're struggling, we have resources. We are endowed as a nation. We have not been able to, optimize the opportunity we have as a nation, both human and material resources. And so that's what we need to focus on.
Okay, doctor. Before we go on the show tonight, I'd like to ask you in one word. How do you describe late former President Muhammadu Buhari in one word?
He's a leader that I think Nigeria should be proud of.
All right, that's our conversation for tonight. The program Big Talk comes up every weekday 7 p.m. On Global TV Africa, and I'm your host. My name is Ubong Osoro. Today we had Dr. MKO Balogun joining us on the show, and thank you so much for making our time to come around and your perspectives. I'm sure Nigerians will be left to judge the things you've said.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's our show for tonight. People, do join us tomorrow for another interesting edition. Bye for now.